describing his near execution by al-Qaeda insurgents in Iraq. By the time Michael crossed paths with them, al-Qaeda in Iraq, a Sunni group, had a firm foothold in the majority Shia country. The man responsible for that, as Michael mentioned, is this man, Abu Musab al-Zarqawi. He was killed last June in a coalition airstrike near Baquba. U.S. officials say he was behind dozens of terrorist attacks in Iraq, including the beheadings of several American and other foreign hostages. He died a hero among Muslim extremists, and as Michael explained to me, the civil war that's engulfed Iraq may be his biggest legacy. The second war in Iraq, the rise of al-Qaeda, the growth of the importance of Abu Musab al-Zarqawi. May 1st, 2003, President Bush stands on that aircraft carrier, mission accomplished. What's actually happening on the ground?
Okay, this is the story of al-Qaeda in Iraq. If you remember, before the invasion, there was what the administration says the presence of an al-Qaeda element in the country. Now, that had nothing to do with Saddam. What they were talking about was this group called Ansar al-Islam that was holed up here in the north, in the Kurdish region. So what we saw even then during the invasion was two wars, the war against Saddam's regime and a much, much smaller attack against an al-Qaeda element in the north. Now, I was there in the north. I was in the battle with US Green Berets and Kurdish Peshmerga fighters, essentially the Kurdish militia that the Green Berets used to go in to this mountain stronghold of this al-Qaeda-linked group and drive them out. I was there with the Green Berets as we all watched these fighters walk over the mountains into the safety of Iran. I was even there as a Green Beret was reporting back on his radio. They're exfilling, they're retreating, they're escaping to Iran. So while the administration is saying, here's al-Qaeda and it's been wiped out, no, the body of this group had been preserved, and we've since seen them and many others re-emerge.
And was Abu Musab al-Zarqawi there?
According to the administration, and much of it has emerged since, Zarqawi was involved with this group. Now, what you need to remember is, after the success of the invasion of Afghanistan, and al-Qaeda was driven out of its sanctuary, its base from which it launched September 11 attacks and many other things, we saw now an organization put under great stress. It had to retreat into the mountains of Waziristan in Pakistan, and it had to disperse. So what we saw for Zarqawi, and what we've now seen for al-Qaeda more broadly, is that the invasion of Iraq gave them the next platform that they'd been looking for. So in many ways, the invasion played directly into the hands of al-Qaeda.
It gave them a focus, it gave them a place to go to, it gave them a battle to join.
It gave them a battle, it brought the enemy, America, to them. The American war in Iraq made Zarqawi. It turned him from a relative nobody into one of the superstars of global jihad, of global Islamic extremism.
He did that through these propaganda tapes, through these tapes of executions of
through a whole range of things. That was just one dimension of Zarqawi's vision, Zarqawi's strategy.
What did he want? What was his plan?
Zarqawi's plan, as we know from a letter he wrote to Osama bin Laden that was intercepted and since released by US forces, what he wanted to do was use Iraq as the new platform to fight this global war. He wanted to use Iraq much as we saw Afghanistan in the 1980s during the Soviet occupation, to create a whole new generation of al-Qaeda and radical Islamic fighters. And that's precisely what he did. At the core of it, apart from the fight against the Americans, what Zarqawi wanted to do was to strike up a war between the Sunni sect of Islam and the Shia sect of Islam. He believed it was through this that his and Al-Qaeda's Sunni branch of Islam would awake from its slumber and rise up to defend itself and eventually conquer all before it. And it was through Iraq that he saw that they would do that.
It's interesting because we in the West often view the battle as a battle between the United States or the West and this radical sect of Islam. In fact, this radical sect of Islam, they want it to be viewed because they want to be seen as the champions of Muslims around the world, when in fact the people they are really fighting against ultimately are other Muslims. The people who they oppose are people who they believe are not Islamic enough.
From the Zarqawi school of thought, there's many battles to be fought, and it's this fight against this other branch of Islam that is one of the vehicles that will elevate Islam. What Al-Qaeda in Iraq has now done is declared this western part of the country an Islamic state. Within this Islamic state, they intend to rule by Sharia law, pure Islamic law. But we're seeing them create a Ministry of Information. They're putting together essentially a shadow government that will have a cabinet and different ministries to administer the people who fall within this state. But what we see right now is that Al-Qaeda feels that coming into our 5th year of this war, that it is in a position, that it is doing so well that it can dare declare a part of American-occupied Iraq an Al-Qaeda Islamic State, a country within the American occupation.
When we come back, we'll talk about the third war in Iraq, the Civil War. That's when we return.